Hey everybody, this is Mr. Morrell, and welcome to the first video of the rest of your life and stuff. Um, and if you're new to these videos, I'm just going to basically walk you through a bunch of your homework questions in an effort to help you out in case maybe you were confused about something in class or you're just looking for a little extra help or whatever. I hope that this will do you good. In this first video, you're going to kind of get a look at how I explain things. I'm basically going to be going over the questions that I provide on your answer key, but this is a great way to understand why I'm getting the answers that I'm getting. So I'll be answering every level 1 question, and then I'll go over about every other level 2 question, a couple level 3 questions, usually 1 or 2, and then, I don't know, depending on my mood, I might give you a hint on a level 4 question. So let's go ahead and jump right in. To understand how to answer the questions, we've got to understand the vocabulary words that I'm using. These are words that you've seen a lot, but we just want to define them for this class so that we're all meaning the same thing when we say the same thing. Now, here's just a hint for you when you're taking a test ever. If you ever see matching questions can be kind of tricky. Usually with matching, on one side of a column you're going to have a sentence or something like that. Maybe an equation. And then on the other side of the column you're going to have a vocabulary word or a short answer. So just kind of a word of advice is, I always recommend to students to start at whatever column is longer. What I mean by that is, if you look at this column right here, you've got a bunch of really small words. And then over here you've got full-on definitions. So we're going to actually start with the definition side over here, and then we're going to look for the vocabulary word that matches it. Some teachers maybe would put the definition in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 column, and then the vocabulary word is matching. In that case, you would want to start on the left. So that's just a word of advice for you as you're preparing for high school and things like that. Let me go ahead and erase all that flahooey that I wrote, and we're going to go ahead and start right here with part A. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. Well, these are things that you've seen ever since grade school, and I don't know if you remember, but these things are called operations. So A is operations. I'm going to go down this column over here and find the word for operation right here. Okay, and let's go ahead, I'll erase that random arrow, and we'll read part B. Part B says, a number that is not being multiplied by a variable. Okay, well, I'm going to kind of scroll the page up just a little bit here, because I'm going to refer to this expression down here that's going to come up in a minute, but I want to refer to that expression as I'm explaining these definitions. So what that's basically saying is we need to understand what these things right here are called. These are numbers that don't have any letters associated directly with them. They're not being multiplied together. These things here are called constants. Okay, so a constant is going to be B. So there's B right there. Okay, again, -2 and 7, those are called constants. C, a letter that is used to represent a number because that number either varies or is unknown. So in this expression down here, we've got the letter X, and that's all we've got down in this expression. Well, I kind of tried to give you a hint with this italicized word, and that is varies. The X is called a variable, because in an expression, a variable is something we don't know. X could be any number, and we would just have to be given more instruction to figure out what that number is. So variable is C. Alright, part D. The parts of an expression, the number and or variable, that are separated by addition. And it gives us this weird hint here that says, don't forget that subtraction is the same as adding a negative number. Now the reason why I gave you that hint is because if we look at that expression here, I see 2 subtraction signs. But in the definition, we're trying to find the parts that are separated by addition. So the reason why I gave this hint is I always recommend to students, if you really struggle, it's important to know that a subtraction sign is the same as adding a negative number. And the other way. And sometimes it's helpful to see plus a negative, and sometimes it's helpful to just see a subtraction sign. But over and over, all year long, we are going to be bouncing back and forth between subtraction and adding a negative. Since our definition is telling us that we're looking for things separated by addition, it's not helpful to have subtraction signs there. So I'm just going to go ahead and take these subtraction signs, change them to plus, negative, and so what this question is saying is, what are these things here called? These things that are being divided by those addition signs. Well, those are called terms. So terms is D. Alright, so there we go there. Part E, a mathematical sentence, which is a combination of numbers, variables, and operations. Well, that's referring to this whole box right here. That is called an expression. An expression is just this combination of letters, numbers, and operations. There is no equal sign in an expression. It just looks the way that it does in that box. So that's E. Well, you guys already know, obviously, that the 4 is going to be F, but I wanted to use this thing down here to point out why that is, because it's going to give you hints as you're working on your homework. So, a number that is being multiplied by a variable. Now, some people forget this, or maybe you didn't really learn it that well, but if you ever have like 2a written down as an expression, there's an invisible multiplication sign hanging out between those two things. This means 2 times a. Okay, so there's an invisible, if you see a letter and a number together with nothing in between, it can be assumed that it's being multiplied together. So F is saying a number that is being multiplied by a variable. So right here, we know that this 3 is being multiplied to this x. It's just an invisible multiplication. Over here, it looks like the number 5 is being multiplied by x, but it's so important to remember, once again, that it's not 5 being multiplied by x, it's actually the negative 5 being multiplied by x. So here, our coefficients would be a 3 and a negative 5. Okay, that's going to come up later in the next group of questions, so I just wanted to give you a hint there. So that was level 1, and I know that took a long time. Normally level 1 doesn't take so long, but we had a lot of vocabulary words, and since we took the time to talk about those words, the next section is going to be much quicker. Let me scroll up the page for you right here, and I want to go ahead and answer just a couple of these questions. Let's start with question 7. 7 says, how many terms are in the expression? Well, I went over this before. A term are the parts of an expression separated by the addition sign. And we have to keep in mind that subtraction signs are kind of like addition. So we're going to make that a plus, negative, and here I'm going to highlight using different colors the different terms. Well, let's just count the terms. We've got one term here, one term here, one term here, and one term here. There are 4 terms in this expression. Okay, now that's a hint for question 8. I'm not going to answer question 8. I basically have if you've been paying attention, but I want to make sure that you guys are on top of your game too. So we need to write out the terms in these boxes. Okay, I've given you a bunch of boxes. You need to write out the specific terms. We know there are 4 of them. You need to write out the specific ones. And be very careful with how you write them. I've given you a lot of hints, and there are things written on this page that are hints for you. Alright, let's go to question 9. How many constants are in the expression above? Well, remember, a constant is a number that's not being multiplied by a variable. So we have, let's see if I'm going to these dots, here's a constant right here, and here's a constant right here. There are 2 constants. Okay, now the word sum, I'm not going to answer this question. The word sum means to add, okay? So if you're asked to find the sum of some things, you need to add them together. Question 11. And don't forget, you can pause this video anytime if you wanted to go ahead and answer these questions as you're watching the video, the ones that I don't answer, or you could wait and save them for the end. Either way. Question 11 says, the coefficients in the expression above are... Okay, well, we've got to find the coefficients. Let me go ahead and erase the stuff that we have hiding down here. Okay, remember that a coefficient is a number being multiplied by a variable. So we had decided before, I think I answered this before, that the 3 is one of the coefficients, and that negative 5 is another coefficient. You've got to remember the negative. 5 is not one of the coefficients, but negative 5 is. And I've been giving you tons of hints so that you can answer question 12 on your own. So I'll let you go ahead and do that. Again, you can pause the video if that's easier for you. Let's go ahead and go to the next page. So on the next page, we have a couple more level 2 questions. And here, we are asked to simplify. Simplify is kind of a scary word for some people, but that just means that we need to combine like terms. So I'm going to recommend that you find the like terms, identify what they are, or find out what terms you have, and then you're going to identify the like terms. Now we're going to talk more about this tomorrow on tomorrow's worksheet, but we did talk about this in class, that a like term is a term that either doesn't have a coefficient or it has the same variable. Whoa, I don't know why I said that. Sorry, a like term either has the same variable or no variable. I said no constant. I don't know what I was talking about. Okay, but let's stop talking about Babel stuff, and we're going to go ahead and look at these examples. So here we have the term. Remember, two terms are separated by an addition sign right there. So one term is negative 3p, and then we have plus a 6p. Well, if I combine these, I can, because they are like terms. They both have the variable p. Negative 3 plus 6 is 3, and we still will have the p. Alright, let's go to question 15. Super easy stuff, I hope. Now, this is going to be one of those cases where you're going to see a subtraction sign, but it might be easier to keep a subtraction sign rather than change it. And I'll show you why. Here, if we want to find the terms, it's important to realize that we have a 7x and a negative x. Now, some people get confused by a negative x. The coefficient for this would be a negative 1. There's like an invisible 1 hanging out there. If I were to have 1 times x, we would shorten that to just call it an x. Similarly, if we have a negative 1x, that would be a negative 1 times x. And most people would just write that as negative x. So that's kind of what we have going on here. It might just be easier to read this almost like it was an English statement. If I have 7 x's and I take away 1 x, how many x's do I have left? Well, I'm going to have 6 x's. And that same idea would work if you were thinking about 7 plus negative 1. If you have 7 x's and you add a negative 1x, you're going to have 6 x's all the same. Alright, let's go down to question 17. Once again, we have a subtraction sign. Hopefully you're getting comfortable. You can either leave it as a subtraction, or if you feel like that's confusing you, then you change it. And that's kind of the rule of thumb. If you see a plus negative and you're confused and want to change it to a subtraction, that's great. If you see a subtraction and you want to change it to a plus negative, you do that too. That's fine. I'll try to usually talk about both ways when I do my videos. Anyway, here we have 3 different terms. Okay, because that's a plus negative 1, so you can find your terms. We have a 35n, a negative 1, and a 46. Now remember, I said earlier that terms are like terms if they have the same letter, like this n right here, but there aren't any other n's, so I can't combine this 35n with anything else. Or if they don't have any letter at all, those are also like terms. So we had here a negative 1 and a 46. Those don't have letters, so I can put those together. Negative 1 plus 46 is going to be the same as 35. What? 45. I can do math. So we have 35n plus 45 is the simplest form of this expression. Now, you already know this, but addition is something called commutative. And that's kind of a fancy college word, but what that means is that with plus signs, you can always switch the order that things are written. So if by chance on your homework assignment you had 45 plus 35n, I would know that you have the right answer because that plus sign means that you can move things around. Okay, let's go ahead and jump down to question 20. Okay, Okay, now let me just give you a quick hint on question 19 and 21. I'm not going to answer them for you, but I'll give you a hint. We are going to talk about the Santa hat in my class, but most normal people call it distribution. If you ever see a number sitting right outside of a parenthesis like this, what that means is that we need to multiply both terms inside of this parenthesis by the number that's outside. So to help me remember that, I draw these arrows that kind of look like a Santa hat. You can kind of imagine the ball there and the hat and whatever. Okay? So we're going to multiply those things through before you can simplify and combine like terms. You can't combine like terms until you've taken care of your parentheses and your multiplication and stuff like that. Let's go over to question 20 like I said we would. Now here, kind of the same idea. When I want to multiply several things by a number, I put parentheses around it. But on question 20, if I want to divide a bunch of things by the same number, I'm going to just write a big underline under those numbers, and then my number that I want to divide by, 2. So when you see all of these things sitting on top of a division sign, all that means is that you need to take negative 4p and divide that by 2. You need to take negative 8 and divide that by 2. And you need to take negative 6p and divide that by 2. Okay? So I'm going to kind of do that one at a time. Negative 4p divided by 2. And again, it might be helpful to change these to say plus negative if you're getting scared about the subtraction sign. So negative 4p divided by 2, that's just going to be negative 2p, because negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. Then I've got a plus sign because I changed that, and then I'm going to do negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. There's no variable there, so I'm just going to write negative 4. And finally, I'll have a plus sign. Negative 6p divided by 2 is negative 3p. But we do need to simplify, like the instruction says, and so I'm going to combine like terms. Well, there's a p right here, and so I need to find a matching variable. There's one right there. I can combine these two. Negative 2 plus negative 3 is negative 5, and we're still going to keep the p with it. And then you could either write plus negative 4, or if you're more comfortable, you could just write minus 4. Either way, I know the right answer, and on a test I would be able to know the right answer too. I'm pretty smart that way. Alright, so that's your level 3 help there. Ooh, and here's another big help on this question 21. Again, if you see a subtraction sign, it might throw you off. I would highly recommend changing this to say plus negative 5. And then my hint is that you do not, because of order of operations, which you learned in 7th grade and really reviewed again in 8th grade, we cannot combine these two. You don't add. Remember, order of operations is like this, PEMDAS. We can't do the addition until we've taken care of stuff in the parentheses and multiplication first. Well, we need to Santa hat this negative 5, which means we need to multiply. Do not add these things together until you've taken care of this multiplication, or else you're going to be simplifying your expression in a funny way. And I know that's really confusing for people, but if somebody was to just write that expression, you know, there's a lot of different orders of things that we could do things. So the order of operations just helps us so that everybody in the whole wide world would be simplifying this expression in the exact same way to get the same answer. Okay, then you are going to have this kite problem for level 4. Level 4 questions are supposed to be tough. I won't really help you on them. I guess I'll just give you a hint, kind of, and that is you really want to look for patterns here. You may want to look for patterns in the kites. And this is going to be a great word of advice for the whole year. Look for what things are staying the same between the pictures, what things are changing, and how are they changing. How do those changing things relate to these numbers here? Okay? And it's also going to be really helpful all year. We're going to be making tables because we're going to be able to see patterns in the tables. So I'm going to highly recommend that you look for patterns in the picture, look for patterns as you move down these numbers in the table, but also look for patterns going this way, or you're going to see a pattern like that. Okay, well, I hope this video has been helpful. I try to keep my videos under 20 minutes. It looks like we're just at 20 minutes right now. And I hope that it was good. If you need any more help, come ask me. And again, I have a copy of the answer key on my website, and I will put a link to my website on this YouTube page under the description. So if you need to click on that, you're more than welcome to. Alright, I hope you have a great day. Bye.